Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hi there.
Today we're opening up a stack of essays that, well, they offer this fascinating, funny, and sometimes pretty painfully honest look at life as we navigate through it.
Yeah, specifically focusing on things like aging, identity, relationships.
And all those little everyday absurdities,
Yes.
right? The stuff we all deal with.
Exactly. We've got a collection of insights here touching on, well, everything from the blunt truths our bodies reveal as we get older
Yeah.
to surprising chaos you might find hidden in, say, your handbag.
Okay.
And the journey of finding personal style through food and home, the unexpected realities of parenting,
Right.
and ultimately what it means to face aging, mortality, all of it.
It sounds like a really rich mix, full of personal experience, sharp observations.
Definitely.
So our mission, as always, is to unpack these sources, pull out the most important nuggets, find those surprising facts.
And maybe have a few aha moments together with you.
Think of this as your shortcut, maybe, to being well-informed on this delightful, sometimes challenging mix of human experience.
Exactly. It's about understanding the universal, but through the very specific lens of these, observations and anecdotes.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting where the source material starts, which is, well, it seems fundamental, but it reveals surprising truths. The body.
Mm-hmm.
And how we relate to its changes, the effort that goes into maintaining it. And the sources, they jump right in with a pretty blunt observation about aging in the neck.
They really do. According to one dermatologist cited in the essays, the neck starts to go at 43.
43, that is incredibly specific.
Yeah.
Why the neck? What's the deal?
Well, the argument presented is that faces can be, deceiving, makeup procedures.
Right.
But the neck is the truth. There's this really striking analogy used.
Oh, yeah.
You have to cut open a redwood tree to see how old it is, but you wouldn't have to if it had a neck.
A redwood tree having a neck. Okay, that image definitely sticks with you. It makes you think about, well, that younger neck you never appreciated. Does the source talk about that feeling of regret?
Yes, very much so. That distinct sense of regret about not spending youth, gazing lovingly at a young neck, something you'd never even considered or been grateful for when you had it.
Right, you just take it for granted.
And that feeling, it directly impacts how you interact with mirrors as you get older, averting your eyes, squinting.
Or pulling the skin back.
Exactly, instinctively pulling the skin back to see that younger self.
And apparently, rear view mirrors are the absolute worst for this.
That's what the source says. It's presented as one of those bizarre modern life mysteries like why the cold water in the bathroom is colder than in the kitchen.
Okay.
And what's fascinating here is the pragmatic view of plastic surgery. It's not presented as some simple fix.
Right, it's complicated.
Yeah, the source notes you can't just fix the neck in isolation. It requires a facelift, too, because it's apparently one big ball of wax.
One big ball of wax.
Got it.
I know.
And there's this rather blunt distinction made between candidates, the muffin maybe with a nice round face who might be a good candidate,
Versus
the bird who would end up looking, well, pulled and tight like a drum pad.
ouch. Okay, so the neck is the stark, unavoidable truth of aging.
Yeah.
But the source material makes it clear. This physical maintenance, it goes way beyond just the neck. Where else does it take us?
Oh, pretty much the whole physical self.
Yeah.
And the sheer effort involved is a big theme. Hair, for instance.
Okay. Right.
The washing and drying time commitment is highlighted as staggering. The source estimates that for someone washing daily, that could be an hour a day,
An hour.
which adds up to 365 hours a year, which is 9 work weeks.
9 work weeks a year just on washing and drying hair.
Yeah.
When you frame it like that, it sounds absolutely exhausting.
Doesn't it? And then there's the dizzying array of products available now. The source notes just trying to find simple shampoo is a challenge, with a million specialized options.
Everything specialized.
And there's also the personal struggle with, well, ineptitude at styling one's own hair.
Yeah.
Relying on salons for blow dries is mentioned.
Yes.
With the humorous aside that it's cheaper than psychoanalysis, but still a significant time drain.
Cheaper than psychoanalysis. I like that. And then there's hair dye. This is a big one in the source material.
Huge. The source proposes this is the real reason 40, 50, and 60 don't look the way they used to. It's not just changing attitudes or exercise.
It's the dye.
It's the ubiquity of hair dye. The statistic is pretty striking. Only 7% of American women dyed their hair in the 1950s compared to, well, almost everyone now, it seems.
Wow, 7% versus now. That's a massive shift.
It's underscored by an anecdote about Jean Harris being the only woman with gray hair at a lunch at Le Cirque.
Right.
And the shift from simple single-process color to highlight, with the peroxide and those aluminum foil packets.
Oh, the foils. hours in the chair.
Turning a relatively quick process into an unendurable 3 hours, as the source puts it.
And yet, despite the time and cost, highlights can become this strange addiction.
Yeah, it's compared to that first sip of Brandy Alexander in Days of Wine and Roses.
Yeah.
You're hooked. And it costs more than a first automobile, apparently.
Within a car.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's next on the maintenance list?
Next up, nails. The pressure to have regular manicures is presented as relatively recent.
Really? It feels like it's always been a thing.
Well, the source points to the sudden appearance of cheap nail places all over Manhattan as a major shift, going from maybe filing your nails twice a year to this expectation of regular professional manicures.
Huh. Interesting. And unwanted hair. That gets mentioned too. Right?
Oh, yeah, features prominently. The experience with threading for mustache and eyebrows is described painful but remarkably effective. Learned from someone named Nina who picked it up in Russia.
Threading. Okay.
Framed as something Russia oddly managed to outdo the U.S. on.
Uh-huh.
There's also the observation about how hair growth changes with age, less on the legs and bikini area, apparently. A small silver lining, maybe.
A small compensation for the waxing burden.
Exactly. And the pain of waxing itself is vividly compared to labor, involving LeMay's breathing techniques.
Maze for waxing. Wow.
It's a memorable detail. And an observation about the elaborate pubic hairstyles young women today sometimes adopt. Topiary, triangles, hearts.
Right. The source makes a point about memory here too, doesn't it?
Yes, that you might forget the taste of a specific chicken dish from years ago, but you don't forget the pain of labor, linking it back to the waxing. Pain sticks.
Okay, so hair, nails, waxing. What about exercise?
Exercise. The source highlights a real disconnect here between the desire to be in shape and the harsh reality of constantly getting injured while trying.
That sounds familiar.
Right. There's a brief historical reflection how exercise used to just be life, before cars and tanks, apparently.
Thanks. Okay.
And now it's this deliberate, often painful activity.
And the personal history of injuries recounted is quite something.
It's extensive. A pulled lower back, a thrown out hip, shin splints, a neck destroyed just by rolling over.
Just rolling over.
And 2 frozen shoulders from lifting weights while joyfully working out to the movie Chicago.
Oh no. Even joy leads to injury.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
The current state of exercise involves a trainer, treadmill, TV, still finding the whole process unpleasant, summarized by that classic line, rather be in Philadelphia.
Right. Okay, and skin products, that's another huge category.
Massive. The sheer number of bottles and jars today compared to a simpler past with just, say, Nivea.
Just Nivea. Simpler times.
There's a sense of maybe gullibility in buying expensive, hyped products like Strivectin SD, La Mer, Retin-A, glycolic acid.
All miracle creams.
And realizing they often don't even solve basic problems like pimples or rough patches or dry skin.
So lots of money spent, maybe not much result.
That seems to be the takeaway. And other pathetic attempts to turn back the clock are mentioned.
Like what?
Getting white fillings, Restylane injections in the chin, Botox, and a particularly disastrous fat injection in the lips that resulted in looking like a ubangi.
Oh dear, that sounds bad.
Very bad.
So there's this constant, often frustrating battle against gravity and time, using everything from products and procedures to painful routines. After hearing all this detail, it really makes you pause and think about your own relationship with physical upkeep as you get older.
Definitely. What feels genuinely necessary for your well-being and what starts to feel like one of those pathetic attempts the source describes.
It's a real question about where we invest our limited time, energy, money as the body changes.
Absolutely. And speaking of carrying things, let's shift gears to another kind of burden. The things we literally carry, like purses.
The purse.
And the metaphorical baggage that accumulates in life, too.
Right. The section on purses is incredibly specific, isn't it? And probably relatable for many women.
It starts with this intense, almost visceral dislike, I hate my purse.
Straight to the point.
And then this striking connection is made. Le sac, c'est moi. The purse is me.
Meaning?
Suggesting the purse is a mobile reflection of your inner self, your disorganization, your inability to discard things, your failure to coordinate.
A mobile reflection of personal chaos. I like that.
The source mentions early attempts to avoid carrying one altogether, like being a freelance writer working from home, relying on pockets.
Or turning an overcoat into a purse?
Exactly, improvising. But the inevitable happens.
The accumulation.
Within seconds, the purse starts accumulating the debris of a lifetime.
Oh.
The list is, well, It's extensive and hilarious.
Let's hear some highlights.
Loose Tic Tacs, solitary Advils, lidless lipsticks, old chapsticks, tobacco bits, foreign coins, old boarding passes, hotel keys, leaky pens,
Questionable Kleenexes.
scratched glasses, an old tea bag, crumpled checks, even a used toothbrush.
A used toothbrush. The sheer volume and randomness is perfect.
Yeah.
So attempts were made to solve this ingrained disorganization.
Oh, yes. Trying 2 purses, one personal, one work, like a briefcase, failed because the core problem was disorganization, not the number of bags.
Right. Makes sense.
Buying an expensive purse thinking it would somehow change the personality.
That didn't work either.
Nope. Still disorganized. And trying a backpack purse just made the wearer look like a Sherpa.
Like a Sherpa. Okay. There's also a critique of impractical bags, like the Kelly bag.
Yes, described as stiff, forcing you to hang it on your arm, effectively immobilizing half your body, impinging mobility like high heels.
Like high heels for your arm.
Which makes you wonder why the trend of guys carrying purses hasn't caught on bag. You need free hands for things like waving for taxis.
Good point. And the humor in worrying about waterproofing a, $2,600 Kelly bag.
Contrasted with having a personal disregard for such delicate concerns, it's sharp.
So what was the eventual solution? The perfect bag.
Surprisingly, it's described as the best bag ever owned. A cheap, plastic, waterproof, indestructible MetroCard bag.
A MetroCard bag, like yellow and blue.
Exactly. Loud, yellow, and blue. The logic, it matches nothing, therefore it matches everything. Costs next to nothing, indestructible.
And never goes out of style because...
It was never in style, a total rejection of the traditional, impractical status symbol purse.
It's a perfect symbol of embracing functionality, maybe even embracing that inner chaos. Which makes you think about yourself, what literal baggage do you carry every day in your bag or pockets that feels like a reflection of your life?
And beyond the literal bag, there's the emotional, the physical baggage that accumulates over time. The experience of being forced to move from a long-held apartment that's presented as a major catalyst for shedding both.
Right, leaving the Apthorpe apartment. It meant a massive purge, throwing away whole pieces of life.
Care Bears, old tech, sports equipment, years of bank statements, clothes, books, all of it.
And this forced decluttering is described as feeling, cleansing.
Incredibly cleansing, yeah. Like getting back to basics, confronting what had been outgrown, who they were before all that stuff piled up.
It's even likened to sorting through things after dying.
Or being reborn and starting over with a clean slate.
That really resonates. Life transitions often force us to take stock, physically and emotionally. How do we navigate that process of lightening the load, both in our physical spaces and, the emotional weight tied to those possessions?
It's a constant process, isn't it? Moving from our tangible selves and spaces, the sources then delve into domestic life, specifically through the lens of home, food, and the search for personal style, often intertwined in fascinating ways.
Cookbooks are presented almost as significant relationships here.
Yeah, it starts with receiving a large, rather gloomy gourmet cookbook as a gift, seeing it as an emblem of adulthood, but not actually using it for cooking.
Just having a relationship with it.
Right. Then came Julia Child, arriving around the same time as the birth control pill.
Ah, that quote.
Everyone was having sex, and when the sex was over, you cooked something. Captures a specific cultural moment.
And this era also brought lettuce.
A proliferation of different types. Endive, arugula, radicchio, frisee, and the 3Ms mesclun, mosh, and microgreens, presented as a brief history of the last 40 years, told through lettuce.
A history told through lettuce. Okay.
There's also the flavor of France, described as small, simple, foolproof, easy dishes like chocolate mousse, baked pears, and speculation about the mysterious Chamberlain family who wrote it.
And the imagined conversations with cookbook authors are fun.
Right. Julia Child is seen as nice, forgiving, dropping food, putting it back.
Classic Julia.
Michael Field, though, stern, meticulous, almost fascistic, hating the garlic press so much it led to throwing one away just out of fear of his disapproval.
Wow, following recipes precisely back then.
Believing changing anything would ruin it. A common thing in youth, maybe?
Definitely. And Craig Claiborne is another big figure.
Hugely influential food writer for the New York Times. An almost obsessive devotion is described, living for his Sunday recipes, knowing details about his life, his house.
His hatred of iceberg lettuce.
Famously, leading to imaginary arguments about it.
And there's an anecdote about meeting Claiborne and Field.
Yeah, apparently they were at war with each other. And later cooking a disastrous Leonard Bernstein recipe for Claiborne.
Oh, the pressure. But a major turning point in finding personal style came with Lee Bailey.
Yes, visiting his home, experiencing one of his dinner parties, described as a revelation, incredibly simple, plain, honest, playful.
What was the menu like?
Pork chops, grits, collard greens, tiny baked crab apples, a stark contrast to a previous overwrought and overthought personal style. Purple couches, Mexican animals, red plates.
Okay, quite a shift.
Lee Bailey's style was simple, easy on the eyes, comfortable, and distinctively all beige.
All beige.
His influence was immense. Became his love slave, buying his chairs, table, plates, napkins, adopting the beige aesthetic. He even became this calming, imaginary friend.
Giving advice like
Calm down, it didn't matter, pour another drink.
useful advice. And the most important culinary lesson from it.
The rule of 4. Serve a meat, a starch, a vegetable, plus an unexpected fourth thing.
A fourth thing. Why was that magical?
It allowed for taste-to-taste mixing and matching, making guests always want more. Eating at Lee Bailey's meant you could eat forever.
Interesting. And he didn't serve fish.
Nope, because it's too easy to eat and no fun to play with. Food should be fun. People like to play with it on their plate. That was his philosophy.
Okay. But eventually, the strict Lee Bailey phase evolved.
Yes. Adding more courses, serving salad and cheese, venturing beyond beige into color, making decorating mistakes along the way,
Right?
ultimately leading to finding a truly personal style. The realization wasn't about original recipes, but about putting it together, finding your style, giving up food neurosis, figuring out how food genuinely fits into your life.
This whole journey through food and style leads to something really poignant, doesn't it? The lost strudel.
Oh, yes. Deeply poignant, almost Proustian. The search for a vanished cabbage strudel from Mrs. Herbst's bakery on 3rd Avenue disappeared around 1982.
And described in such loving detail.
Buttery, flaky phyllo crust, moist, simultaneously sweet and savory cabbage filling, something completely taken for granted at the time.
Leading to that profound sense of personal temps perdu. Lost time, lost taste.
And the search involved the 3 stages of grief for lost food: hope, hope against hope, and finally losing hope.
Failed attempts to find it.
Searching the internet fruitlessly, trying George Lang's recipe, which just wasn't the same.
But there is redemption.
A moment. Finding a divine, strikingly similar version at Andre's bakery. Tasting it felt like turning back the clock, a mistake erased, validation. Ultimately, mostly, it was cabbage strudel, highlighting the simplicity and the huge emotional weight of that specific lost food.
It connects so deeply to memory, identity, the past. It's not just the food, it's the anchor.
Exactly. Which ties into the idea of home as identity. The source recounts a deep love affair with the Apthorpe apartment on the Upper West Side.
Took it sight unseen, paid what felt like crazy key money back then. $24,000 for a rental in 1980.
But justifying it because it instantly felt like it. The apartment itself became the symbol
of family, luck, identity, representing a certain virtuous, brainy, unpretentious, yet chic self.
And not locking the door symbolized feeling safe, truly home, memories of kids growing up there, getting married there, the community in the courtyard, all deeply tied to that space.
Plus feeling like a genius with rent stabilization, the rent being such a bargain.
Right, adding another layer of contentment. But then came the shift.
Triggered by panic about rent increases and Barbara Ross.
Described as a character from a nightmare, frightening appearance, action seen as hostile to tenants paving the courtyard, memos against kids playing ball.
And on top of that, the whammies.
Yeah, a dead body on the roof, a fire, a robbery. Yikes.
And the improvements by new management cleaning, renovations, gold ceilings, uniforms, lion statues.
All seen by tenants as deliberate acts to justify drastically raising rents.
And new rich tenants started moving in, paying astronomical rents.
$24,000 a month made the pre-death bargain feel completely unsustainable. And the original love affair with the building felt totally one-sided.
So, with kids grown and the accountant advising buying, it was time to move.
Leaving a place that was love for the Upper East Side, a neighborhood previously seen as the enemy.
Full of people considered the enemy.
But the surprising appeal of the new neighborhood is noted proximity to stores, sunnier, warmer, closer to doctors, good food.
So it becomes home, but
explicitly not love, just where she lives now. A clear realization she won't dream about it or feel romantic about this neighborhood like the Apthorpe.
This journey leads back to a shrink's idea. Love is homesickness.
Yeah, though the shrink meant falling for someone like a parent, an idea the source dismisses as too broad, the conclusion drawn is that homesickness itself is definitely love. For a place, at least.
Connecting this back to you listening,
Hmm.
how do your physical spaces, your relationship with food, your personal style, how do they intersect? How do they reflect who you are, where you've come from, who you're becoming?
Absolutely. Moving from our tangible selves and spaces, the sources dive into the incredibly complex world of relationships and the often painful, sometimes hilarious lessons learned, starting with parenting.
Ah, yes, parenting. There's a stark contrast drawn between just being parents in the past and the intense active concept of parenting today.
Totally. The old way involved things like, love, basic care, classic phrases like, because I say so.
And argue with that?
The shift is attributed partly to child development theories, Spock, Brazelton, Piaget, the whole nature versus nurture debate,
Right, personality born with you or lump of clay.
and the complex debate over the women's movement's impact sharing child rearing, the gender-neutral term parenting, versus maybe a backlash that elevated full-time motherhood to this intense, almost sacred status.
Parenting is described as serious, fierce, solemn, unrelenting, constantly active.
Stemming from a belief, perhaps, that a baby was a lump of clay you could mold into a perfect child for college, despite genetics suggesting otherwise.
And this quest for perfectibility required endless additional personnel.
Therapists, tutors, who, it's noted wryly, got rich off you,
Naturally, and immense pressure for quality time.
often translating into being constantly present at mundane events, like driving hours to chess tournaments you couldn't even watch.
Oh, the dedication.
An obligation to understand the child, hoping to avoid adolescent hate, raise happy adults, using careful, new, gentle language instead of maybe old, impulsive phrases.
But then, adolescence hits. Described as a gigantic shock.
Like your own adolescence, but somehow worse, sullen, angry, mean, especially to you, the parent.
Saying forbidden words, earlier marijuana, sex, the embarrassment they cause you.
And the apparent ungratefulness, despite your exemplary parenting efforts, all the cultural activities, preventing boredom, giving them everything.
The frustration is palpable in the writing.
Yeah.
After all that intense, deliberate parenting.
The result seems to be the same as with previous generations of mere parents. The internal question is, how did this happen? What did you do wrong?
So seeking help from therapists. What was the advice?
A blunt reality check, perhaps counterintuitive. Adolescence is for parents, to help them separate, not really for the adolescents themselves.
So there's almost nothing you can do.
But wait it out. The rabbi joke analogy is used bringing animals into a crowded house, then taking them out. Things get worse before they get better.
Right, okay, the next stage. The empty nest.
Despite preempting anxiety, the reality often involves kids coming back frequently during college breaks. But eventually, the nest truly is empty.
And the stark reality dawns. Your parenting days are over.
And the key takeaway here is simple, profound, maybe unsettling for some parents. There is nothing you can do.
Wow, that's stark.
A suggested solution for the empty nest presented with humor.
Get a dog.
Get a dog. They require commitment, are lovable, uncritical, trainable, and a practical tip. Don't leave the child's room as a shrine.
Turn it into something else quickly. Discourage lingering return.
Exactly. When children do visit later, they're described as charming, making you laugh, proud, a sense of shared accomplishment. They survived you, you survived them.
The advice is don't dwell on past neuroses.
But the worrying.
That's forever. Got it.
The source also delves into marriages and divorce. The first marriage, 6 years, ended during the women's movement.
And the memorable anecdote.
The husband, pathologically attached to cats, changed to hamsters in the novel, and the wife asking for a divorce right after he'd taken her on an expensive Africa trip.
Leading to his bewildered line.
But I took you to Africa.
Oh, dear. The second marriage. Shorter.
2 years, 8 months, ended with discovering an affair with a married woman.
And the awkward encounter.
With the woman's husband, who happens to be the British ambassador. Weeping, adding an absurd layer to the pain, prompting his line, "What's happening to this country?"
And amidst the crying, that moment of recognizing the narrative potential.
Someday this will be a funny story. Stepping outside the pain even while feeling it intensely.
Seeing a shrink after that divorce brought another blunt line.
Maybe unexpectedly helpful. You have to understand something. You were going to leave him eventually.
Just cutting through it. And writing a novel is mentioned as a way to process.
Yeah, you can make this stuff up by changing details, cats to hamsters, ambassador to undersecretary, control the narrative.
One of the saddest things about divorce mentioned.
Losing the shared how we met, fell in love story you told your children. It's too confusing after the divorce. Eventually, the source notes you can't even remember if you were madly in love anymore.
That's really sad. This theme of life as narrative, as something you shape and tell, seems central.
Originating from the mother's phrase, everything is copy.
Initially interpreted as turning victimhood into humor.
When you tell people you slipped on a banana peel, it's your laugh. But maybe taking on a different meaning with the mother's dying words. You're a reporter, Nora. Take notes.
And the sister, putting the father's assisted death into a novel.
Prompts the question, who can blame her? And the darkly humorous query about counting the pills, duh.
The Bennington College president's story is another example of real life being stranger than fiction.
Oh yeah. The real reason for her firing an affair, matching shirts, was far more compelling and absurd than the public story about tenure.
And the faculty hated her for bad party food, not the tenure issue.
Exactly. Real life wins again.
A light bulb moment about narrative came during the Silkwood script experience.
With Mike Nichols. His focus on female betrayal in the script mirrored his own life, not the real story of Karen Silkwood.
Interesting.
Led to understanding the Peninsula story, how different people see different culprits based on their own perspective, the Rorschach idea.
And this ended a love affair with journalism.
And led to realizing just about everything is a story, echoing E.L. Doctorow. There is no fiction or nonfiction. There is only narrative.
The When Harry Met Sally excerpt connects back to Sally going to NYC for something to happen, to write about others.
And Harry's famous line about dying alone. Themes of identity, purpose, relationships, loneliness.
And another simple, profound line from Bob Gottlieb at a screening.
We can't do everything. Delivered when the source was trying to fix a seating problem. Presented as the secret of life, though maybe realized a little late.
And the red coat anecdote. Buying it, breaking a rule, never wearing it. Another small, unresolved narrative.
Finally, that rapid-fire list. What I wish I'd known. A distillation of lessons.
People only have one way to be. Buy, don't rent, never marry someone you wouldn't divorce.
Couch color, beige. Wool itches, beware late callers, block instant mail, babysitter burnout is real, you never know.
Last 4 years of psychoanalysis, waste. Plane isn't crashing. Nostalgia for your younger body.
Saggy roll at 55 has clothing implications. Our friendship is more important is a warning. No point making pie crust from scratch.
Second glass of wine waking up. File for divorce immediately. Overtip. Never let them know everything. Close mistakes ratio. Only 13 work out.
Can say no to being guardian. And perhaps most surprisingly, no secrets.
Wow. It's a lifetime of wisdom, delivered with such blunt honesty, humor. Which of these lessons resonate most with you listening? Have you had moments where small anecdotes revealed bigger truths?
It's really powerful how these very specific, sometimes quirky observations just crystallize these larger universal truths about being human. It's not abstract theory, it's lived experience.
Absolutely. Which brings us to facing the ultimate realities the sources touch upon. Aging and mortality. Turning 60 is described. A party in Vegas. A clear reliance on denial.
Something the source explicitly states they actually believe in as a way of life.
And the acknowledgement that nothing is truly better at this age than younger ages.
Except maybe a good haircut and apartment. Leading to that classic phrase, consider the alternative.
Right. Despite surviving mistakes, turning them into stories, money, there's still regret.
An honest acknowledgement, je regrette beaucoup. And a sharp critique of those upbeat books for older women.
Just dismissed as useless bromides.
Stating bluntly, it's simply not better to be older. Physical decline, even chopping onions gets harder. Younger people taking jogs. Changes in sex. Can't wear a bikini.
Leading to regret about not wearing one more from 26 to 34.
Exactly. A conversation with a magazine editor who insists this is our day for older women
is met with a blunt counterpoint. It isn't our day, it's their day.
The source is way past age shame, just happy just to be here at all.
Frustrations with technology are highlighted, too, as a specific indignity of aging.
Can't use complex cell phone functions, the nightmare of remote controls, car radios, bicycle gears, fear of digital watches. And the empty nest means you've lost the resident tech support.
True. There's an interesting observation about the generation's belief in control.
That ingrained belief in fixing everything, being proactive, positive, pills, creams, crosswords, almond scans, trying to ward off decline and death, almost manage mortality away.
But the most poignant part of this section is the death of a close friend, Judy.
At 66, from cancer. Died horribly, had no interest in dying. The grief is palpable.
Described as a phantom limb, thinking of her daily, unable to wear her shawl.
Because it feels like that's all there is left of her.
Yes.
So raw.
An attempted conversation about death with friends at lunch reveals how hard it is to discuss.
Yeah, despite death being everywhere, the friend quickly wants to avoid being morbid.
There's an acknowledgement of wanting to have had that straightforward conversation before anyone was sick.
But it never felt eventual or inevitable then. Always seemed avoidable somehow when you're healthy.
The source also touches on the impossibility of truly planning for your own death.
Living wills are easier when living. You can't know how you'll feel when sick, brave, or terrified. Won't know the prognosis or if you'll hear the truth.
Admiring how someone named Henry handled his death is mentioned, but
Uncertainty about how that applies personally, and losing love letters is added as this small, self-deprecating detail amidst the gravity.
funeral instructions remain vague. Only food and drink specifics.
William Pohl, finger sandwiches and champagne. Clear priorities, but indecision about burial versus cremation.
Due to fear of impacting reincarnation.
Even while acknowledging it's likely not real, clinging to tiny, irrational possibilities in the face of the unknown.
Judy's dying words capture the raw reality. I don't want to die. I believe in miracles. I love you.
And perhaps most piercingly, can you believe this? Reflecting that shared disbelief.
Common coping phrases are listed. Let's not be morbid. Eat, drink, and be merry. Seize the day. Consider the alternative.
Presented not as profound wisdom, but maybe just the simple, slightly inadequate tools we have.
The section concludes with that sense of lingering uncertainty. Meanwhile, here we are. What is to be done? I don't know.
But this powerful existential reflection is immediately brought back to ground. Practical, everyday problems persist. Squirrels in the roof, rain, cushions.
Life's mundane realities continue. And then, the final, deeply human and surprisingly powerful anecdote about bath oil.
Yes. Using an expensive lemon bath oil, Dr. Hauschka's, $20 a bottle, and deliberately using much, much more than the instructed capful.
And the rationale.
Simple, direct, relatable. I'm going to feel like an idiot if I die tomorrow and I skimped on bath oil today.
It makes her skin smooth, despite the dangerous oil-slick bathtub it creates.
And the final act. Going out to buy more.
It's such a perfect blend, acknowledging mortality while simultaneously choosing small moments of pleasure, self-care, even defiance despite it.
So what does this all mean? We've taken this deep dive into a collection of essays that really reveal the universal experiences of life, aging, identity, relationships, mortality.
Yeah, through incredibly specific, personal, often hilarious observations, from the visible signs of aging on our bodies to the invisible chaos in our bags.
The unexpected places we find identity in our homes, our relationships with food, the challenging journey of parenting, the complex web of relationships.
And the ultimate reality of facing our own end.
There's this powerful thread running through it all, when you say resilience, a sometimes messy search for meaning and style.
And an honest acknowledgement that life is full of frustrations and pain, but also rich with moments worth savoring, observing, turning into something that helps us understand it all.
It's a reminder, maybe, that the most profound insights often come from simply looking closely at the world around us, within us, asking, can you believe this?
And finding ways to navigate the difficult parts, often with humor and grace.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to carry forward after this deep dive. In the face of the inevitable, whether it's the aging neck, the chaotic purse, or the ultimate reality, where do you choose to spend your precious resources?
Your time, your energy, your love, maybe even your expensive bath oil.
This has been The Deep Dive. We hope you found some valuable insights in this exploration.